Hey everybody.
Hey, we're back talking about freelancing. Now, I did a little bit of freelancing when I first started, but Evan has done a lot of freelancing. So, Evan, I really want to get your take on all of this stuff.
You got it.
Can you just start talking a little bit about freelancing, the important stuff everybody needs to know?
All right, so the important stuff about freelancing, well, let's start with what everybody does know. Everybody knows that freelancers work at home on their couch and they set their own hours, they're their own boss, they never have to do anything they don't want to do. That's kind of true. That's kind of true. The reality is, as a freelancer, there's a lot of stress there that you might not anticipate from a 9-to-5 job. I mean, every second that you spend sleeping is seconds that you are not earning money. You are actually sacrificing the opportunity to earn more money by going for a walk, by taking a nap, by watching something on Netflix. Everything that you do has an opportunity cost of real, tangible income. And you need to be very emotionally prepared for that, because it can be really hard to turn off if you're very invested in turning this into a sustainable lifestyle. It can be hard to turn off. It can be hard to be emotionally present for your family if you have children or if you have a spouse. So all these things you definitely want to keep in mind and be aware of. Over time, it could have some serious ramifications. But that's the touchy-feely stuff. More importantly, what being a freelancer involves, which most people don't know about, is a lot of work that isn't what I actually signed up to do.
Yeah, I even ran into that. I barely did a lot of freelance, so...
Yeah, so there's two things that I'm kind of referring to here. One is scope creep, which I'll talk about in a minute. And another is all of the things that actually require keeping your business running, because you are a business, you're your own business. So I suddenly became my own marketing team, my own sales team, my own social media marketing team, my own accountant, my own bookkeeper, my own tax preparer. All of these things need to get done in order to keep you and your business solvent. And if you're not prepared to do them or pay someone else to do them, it's just not going to work out. So you might want to have some money prepared to pay professionals to handle this for you.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because certain things, even like bookkeeping and stuff, is really easy to hand off.
Yes.
And it doesn't cost that much money.
And it takes a lot of time if you try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
There are also just some shortcuts that you should not take, such as actually legally declaring yourself as a business. A lot of people think you can just find a job as a freelancer and say, hey, I'm a freelancer, I'll do your work. And that's true, but the second anybody pays you more than $600 on one contract, which should hopefully be soon, you're going to get reported to the IRS. And if you're not legally doing business, that's going to be a problem down the line. So you want to do your research. You want to figure out what legally is required for you to be able to conduct business out of your home. And this is both federally, this applies both federally and on the state level, possibly even the city level, depending on where you live. You want to do your research. If you're not sure how to do your research, or if you're too busy to do your research, you want to talk to a business attorney.
Yeah, that can be a little expensive. So, start with Google, because you could do this stuff through, there's good advice on LegalZoom. There's a lot of articles on how do you start a business. You can just Google, how do I start a business in California? And they'll give you a list of these legal things you need to do to kind of get started. Sift through a lot of articles, though, because there's a ton of advice on it. And sometimes it's very contrary. So I'd recommend reading up on it a lot before making a final decision.
Yeah, put some serious time into thinking about it. So if you are on the fence, if you're at a job you don't like and thinking about making the transition to freelance, give it some real thought. Save up some significant amount of cash, ideally something like a 6-month runway, 6 months of rent and food and clothes and anything else that you need before you make that jump. That's just baseline advice. Okay, but that's the boring stuff. The other thing I mentioned was scope creep. And this is something that happens every single time, 100% of the time. Clients often do not know how to conduct business with a freelancer. And what that usually means is they will ask for things outside of the scope of what they agreed to do or what they agreed to pay you for. And often it's a little tiny fix, just a little tiny fix. Like, can we adjust the font here? Can we change the color of this one thing? Can we move this just a little bit over? But those little tiny fixes add up. They add up significantly. And unless you are very vigilant about it, that's time you're investing that they're not paying for. So when you create contracts for your clients, you want to be careful to control for scope creep. You want to outline very clearly, this is what you're hiring me to do, this is what I'm going to do for this amount of money. Anything outside of that is going to be X number of dollars per revision. So I strongly suggest you batch all of the changes you want to make and send them to me all at once rather than little thing here, little thing the next day, little thing the day after that. It will encourage your clients to very comprehensively review your work, and if they have any changes, they'll give them to you all at once, and they'll pay you for each extra hour that you put into the project.
Now, when I was freelancing, one, that's huge. That's a major thing. Another thing that I ran into, and I want to know what your solution would be for this, was I would get website work, and I'd be like, look, all I need is images and I need content. And they'd be like, I'll have that for you by Monday. And they never, ever did. Is this something that you would write into contracts on due dates for the client themselves? Can a contract help with that?
Yes. Contract milestones are great for that. If you set a milestone for the client to deliver things which they agreed to deliver, and they fail to do so, there needs to be either penalties involved in your contract, more money for you, or something like a kill fee. Like, okay, I'm walking away from this now, you owe me this money, you didn't meet your deadline. If you'd like to draw up a new contract after the fact, we can do that. Because if you don't have content and images for something like a website job, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Best you can do are stock photos and a lot of lorem ipsum dummy text. Which kind of brings me to something else, especially if you're freelancing as a web developer. You are not a graphic designer. You are not a copywriter. You are not a professional photographer or illustrator. These are all separate things, and clients don't often understand that. They think that everything on the website is your domain. That is not true. You take the images of their product that they already should have. You take the copy, the text that they should already have written and edited and prepared, and you insert it onto your website. You don't create all of those assets yourself. If you do, if you have those skills, charge for them. That's a lot of extra money. It's a whole extra job, potentially a whole extra contract. So, really good question.
Cool. So it sounds like everything should be in a contract, yes, then, from what you're saying. All right. So that's really important. What about, so many students ask this for how do they find work? How do they find freelance jobs?
Well, there are some really convenient methods today, which I either didn't have or didn't know about in the beginning, like Upwork or Fiverr or other freelancing platforms like this. They're really easy ways to find nice, approachable, manageable jobs in a controlled environment. Upwork, guarantees your payment, even if the client skims, things like that. Now, these platforms take a cut, but I find that it's worth it, especially when you're getting started and you're getting off the ground. It's easy to get a lot of quick and maybe not well-paying, but quick and significant experience in a very short period of time. There's excellent learning to be had in trying to engage with 5 different clients on one of these platforms before you, start creating cold call marketing plans or cold emails, which you're going to send to businesses who might need your services. That's how I would get started nowadays. In the old days, you'd have to pound the pavement. You'd have to reach out to companies. You'd call someone in the right department and say, this is what I do. This is some of my work. Can I interest you in any of my services? I could do this, this, and this for you. A lot of that still holds. A lot of finding work is finding the potential for work. So you create a market for your services by finding companies that you think could use your services and preparing for them a proposal. This is why I think I could help your business. This is what I think I could do for you. If you're interested in talking to me, this is where you can reach me. Maybe they will call you, maybe they won't, maybe they'll call you a year later when they find they really do need your services. But it's a really good way to get business. And companies, they don't like to look for people. They don't like to look for contractors.
That's true.
They don't like to look for a web designer. If they don't have one in-house, they don't like to look for one or post an ad on Craigslist. It's awful for them. It costs money, it takes time. So if they have your name at the top of their head, if they have your email in their saved email, that could have been better said. If they have your email and your information, or if they are familiar with your work, or maybe employed you in the past, you're going to be who they go for. So much of this is about getting your name in their head and keeping it there.
Cool. So that also follows up then with actually doing really good work.
Yes.
Actually, like doing a really, really good job while at the same time, managing their expectations, which means keeping them happy. Really, that's why you're managing expectations, to keep them happy and keep them satisfied.
Yes.
Right? Because have you found that that's also the case too, where it might not always be the quality of work necessarily, but a lot of it has to do with their expectations of what the work is. Because even if you do amazing work, but their expectations are here, it's not going to match up, and they're still going to be upset and angry clients.
100%. That's the other role that I forgot to mention. You are a project manager or an account manager if you're in sales. That's 100% true. And to use the same website job example, if they think that you're going to be sourcing original stock photography for all of their assets, and you come to them after the contract has been signed, after the prototype has been built, and you're like, hey, can I see your photo assets? And they're like, aren't you handling all of that? You're kind of stuck, because you either have to inform them that they came into this with mistaken assumptions and that you need to be compensated for this extra work, but they now have the ability to say, that's not in the contract. That's not what we paid you for, and I thought this was going to be ready from the outset. It was your responsibility to ask me the questions that would have determined that this is something else we need to discuss. And that is very true. The onus is on you to protect yourself, to ask all of the questions you possibly can when you first speak with a company.
All right, cool. So it sounds like we've already gone over how to find new business.
Yes.
Right? We've gone over contracts that you'll need to do, and legal stuff as well to protect yourself. What else do new or up and coming freelancers need to know?
Well, we get a lot of questions about rates. What should I charge for this? What should I charge for this? Easy answer is, what do you want to be paid for it? What do you want to be paid? Think about when you pay for something. There is a very strong psychological force of that affects our spending habits, which is the thought that we get what we pay for. So if you charge $25 an hour, and don't do that, please don't do that. If you charge $25 an hour, clients are going to think they're paying for $25 an hour work.
That means low. That's low. That's a low amount.
It's not good. Not good.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
So, even if you're scared, even if you don't have a whole lot of confidence, ask yourself what you really want to be paid. How many hours is this job going to take you, and how much do I want to get paid for that? Try your very best to identify a number. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially in the beginning, but it gets easier. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to lose out, you're going to leave money on the table, but over time, you're going to have a system down.
Just to tie into that too, when you go for the low rate clients, they're the worst to work with. They want the most for nothing. When I first started, I was doing websites for $100, $200, and it would take me weeks to complete their stuff. They were just coming back with constant changes, constant things they wanted, constant complaints, and it's like, I'm doing it for $100. I don't know what you're freaking out about. Because I'm doing so much work for you for nothing. I think it was some of my projects would work out where I'm making like $2 an hour.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have change orders in my contracts, and they changed the scope, and I was working with really cheap people, and that's what happens. So you got to be really careful that doesn't happen. That's more likely to happen than you asking for too much money. Okay, you're way more likely to ask for way too little than really ask for too much.
Yeah, think about what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you say you charge too much. They're going to say, I can't do that, my budget is here, can you meet it? At which point you can either renegotiate and say, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Or they say, that's too much, I'll move on with someone else. At which point you just move on and look for a new contract. Okay? And Matt's exactly right. Things like change orders, things like kill fees, things like protections against scope creep. All of these are things you should look into when you start researching contracts. And there's a lot of resources out there for creating your own contracts or using templates. That's not the hard part.
Yeah.
So yeah, do good work, be good to work with, make sure that you manage your clients' expectations very well. All of this takes time to learn. And after all is said and done, you still need to show off your work and you need to pay taxes. Two big things that we still need to talk about. Showing off your work is the more fun one, so let's start there. You always want to display your work very proudly. Anytime you do work, monitor and record your process. Don't just show the final product of your project. Show the idea that it started with. Start with the summary of the job. Show the sketches of your paper prototype if you're designing a website, or just your sketches if you're creating a logo, whatever it is you do. Show the process, because that's what clients are very interested in, and that's what, if you're planning to transition from freelance to a full-time job, it's what hiring managers and recruiters are very interested in. They want to see how you work, not just what you create. So record your process, keep track of all of these different iterations of a project. It will save you a lot of time in the future. Your portfolio is going to be your digital business card. It's extremely important. Your portfolio is where you will showcase your best work. You will send potential clients there. You will ask clients when you are done working for them for testimonials. You want them to say a few words. Oh, I worked with Evan and it was great. Probably more verbose than that. You get the idea.
Yeah.
You get the delivery was timely, the quality was exactly on par with what we wanted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Client testimonials are really important, and people put a lot of stock in them. Okay, so those are portfolios. Finally, taxes. Taxes are tricky for a freelancer because you are filing your own taxes, you are paying a self-employment tax, you are probably paying additional city and local state taxes based on where you live. All of these are things to keep in mind and to be aware of, because tax season is always a nightmare. And if you're not handling your taxes yourself, then, fantastic for you. That is great. But if you are, make sure you do your research. Okay? It doesn't just end at starting your business and getting set up.
It's going to surprise you too if you're not prepared. You're going to get a letter or something from the city or from the state.
It's going to freak you out.
Yeah, because it could be for thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's going to be awful. So yeah, that's really good advice. Is you need to prep fully for that.
Yeah, but that's kind of the other thing. You are at some point going to get a letter from the IRS.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
No.
When it does, don't panic. It's really not that scary. It looks scary. It sounds scary. It's not. Just take it in stride. It's cost of doing business. You will learn something from it.
So as far as, taking payments in from clients, what do you recommend for that?
Good question. You don't really want to ask a client to Venmo you or use a PayPal invoice or something like that. You can use PayPal. I use it sometimes for clients who aren't prepared for other mechanisms. The age of paper checks is over. So you might want to create a business account with something like Square or another payment processor. Something like that will definitely help get you through that awkward conversation of when you actually need to draft up an invoice. And invoices, please rely on invoices. They are professional looking, they are professional feeling, and if you just ask for money in an email, it's not going to work, it's not legally binding, there's a lot of problems with that. So get used to invoicing. You can even create your own invoice in an Excel spreadsheet. Doesn't matter, but use them. Use a professional third-party payment processor like Square. You can use PayPal. PayPal has some issues, and they take a lot of money out. So be wary of that.
All right, I got one more question for you. What platforms should freelance, besides Upwork, we already talked about Upwork, what other platforms or software should freelancers be aware of?
Ooh, that is a good question. So Upwork and Fiverr, these are platforms for finding work. But there are other platforms tangential to that, like Behance. Behance, an Adobe platform, not one of their paid programs. It's just a platform, social media-esque, is an excellent platform for finding inspiration and for posting your own work. You will have to post your own work, and you'll have to design the presentation of your work in such a way as to make it appealing and attractive. It allows you to connect with other designers or other web developers or other freelancers of any kind. It's a great platform for that. Other things, it really depends on what you're into. You know, if you're an illustrator, ArtStation is a great place to go. If you're a copywriter or copy editor, things like Creative Market, there are other platforms out there. I would strongly recommend you do some research, but we can certainly post a list.
Cool. Yeah. We'll attach that below. So
Yeah.
you can get that too. All right. Awesome. I think that's everything. Is there anything else you think they should know?
No, I don't think so. Just, be prepared for a lot more headache than you expected until it's gone.
All right. Sounds good to me. Talk to y'all later.